Your name and title?
Yes, my name is Charles Bonner. I'm the attorney for the class action lawsuit on behalf of the community. The purpose of this press conference today is for the community to express their outrage that the state of California would contract with a criminally convicted corporation, Tetra Tech, and pay Tetra Tech taxpayers' dollars after Tetra Tech has been convicted. Two of their supervisors are now serving time in federal penitentiary for deliberately defrauding the United States government and deliberately leaving radionuclear materials and other toxins in Hunters Point that is causing cancer and respiratory problems and various illnesses to the people of Hunters Point. We're talking about 40,000 people. We just left a town hall meeting at the school, University of Islam School in Hunters Point, where there was at least 300 people who were present. We asked the people how many people knew someone with cancer, and everybody can attest it was like almost every hand in the house. How many people knew someone who had died of cancer? Every hand in the house. How many people who were afraid of contracting cancer? Every hand went up in the house. This is what Tetra Tech has done to this community. This is the injury.
My name is John Scott, and I originally was involved in two lawsuits. One lawsuit was an employment wrongful termination case on behalf of 4 whistleblowers. These are 4 people who worked on the project for Tetra Tech at different jobs, different levels of supervision, but they all had one thing in common, all knew one thing in common, and that was they were being either encouraged to commit fraud or they were being ignored when they complained about fraud, and when they saw others committing fraud and when they tried to bring it up to management's attention, they were ignored, and if they kept complaining, they were ultimately fired. These are 4 people who were trained in doing remediation of sites such as this one, and they were all fired, and we brought a lawsuit that was successfully settled for the wrongful termination. And then we also brought the Key Tam lawsuit asking the government to join my clients in clawing back the money that was paid to Tetra Tech so that the problem could be fixed and the job that Tetra Tech should have done could be done. And the Navy was the main player in all of this. And unfortunately, the Navy has kind of formed an alliance with Tetra Tech, and that's part of the problem. And that's why it's taken the government so long to even try to begin to address the problem.
Yeah, and that the Department of Justice has now intervened on your lawsuit.
Yes, the Department of Justice recently intervened in the lawsuit, and we're waiting to see how vigorously they're going to pursue the lawsuit.
My name is Elaine Brown. I'm a part of the sort of steering committee we have for the lawsuit. But our real purpose today is to announce that with all of the failures and the fraudulent activities of Tetra Tech, that Gavin Newsom, who was a participant in organizing the development of the shipyards with the Lennar Corporation, is now just hired Tetra Tech, the very people that the government is suing, to clean up Butte County's campfire debris. It's an outrage to the people. It's an environmental disaster, and I think that's one of the things that we wanted to say as part of representing of this community of people who here today, many of whom are walking around with cancer because of the toxins at the shipyard.
And the people here are demanding that Governor Gavin Newsom, that we love him, but we are demanding that he rescinds, withdraws, and cancel that contract with Tetra Tech. It is a slap in the face of the injuries that these people have been suffering for years. It's an insult.
That's right.
So we want that contract canceled. We want it rescinded. We want it withdrawn, and we want that to happen in 30 days. If not, these people are going to march on the State House in Sacramento and to stay there until he cancels that contract.
My name is Bradley Angel, and I'm the Director of Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice. And we've been working with the residents of Bayview Hunters Point for decades to bring health and justice to this community. And it's symbolic and important that we're here on a day to honor Martin Luther King Jr.,
That's right.
who helped lead and dedicated his life to the struggle for justice and civil rights. And we want to be clear that the struggle for health and justice in Bayview Hunters Point is a civil rights struggle.
That's right.
Yes.
It is a struggle against racism and injustice and discrimination. And all of us together are challenging it.
That's
Yes.
right.
The latest contract to Tetra Tech
Shame.
is an abomination. It's outrageous.
Outrageous.
But it's not the first time. This company that finally the government admits committed massive fraud,
Right.
which the community had said for years, whistleblowers had said, City Hall and the state and the feds ignored it as long as they could. Not only haven't they paid a penny in fines, but they've been rewarded with contracts.
That's right.
Not just this huge contract by the California EPA's Cal Recycle, but it was 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, that the United States EPA in San Francisco, at the exact same time they had figured out how extensive the fraud at the shipyard was, had the audacity
That's right.
to give Tetra Tech an $85 million contract to do uranium mine contamination assessment on the Navajo Nation.
Wow.
But here's the good news. There's at least 2 Tetra Tech supervisors in jail. More need to go there.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
Right. There you go.
And here we are working with people up in Butte County, and we'll be taking further action in the coming days, so stay tuned.
My name's Dr. Ahimsa Sumcha. I'm a practicing medical doctor. I grew up in southeast San Francisco, and I served as a physician specialist with the San Francisco Department of Public Health. I am the physician on the death certificate of my father, George Donald Porter. He was a career longshoreman. He died prematurely of pulmonary asbestosis, and his death was a trigger for a class action suit. I also was the first African American woman to run for mayor of San Francisco, and in 2007 I ran against Gavin Newsom, and I ran against Gavin Newsom. A lot of people here will agree, because I felt compelled to protect a community that was being bombarded by toxic dust.
Right.
And some of that dust has been volatilized in areas where Tetra Tech committed fraud in the soil. And now we have soils that were fraudulently cleared, that in the years since it was discovered, and remember the Navy computers picked up the fraud in 2012, and Tetra Tech's own report, which validated this collection, 2,500 anomalous samples, didn't come out until 2014, and here we are 2019, and we are seeing convictions and prosecutions of people who've been clearly involved in criminal fraud and negligence and unethical behavior that has endangered a very vulnerable community. One of the communities in the city that has the highest childhood population, the highest infant mortality rates across all ethnic groups. It's not a black thing. They used to say was just black people and were smoking and, you know, not getting enough sleep and a lot of stress. But infant mortality rates in this zip code 94124 have increased across all ethnic groups, and many of the diseases and the disparities in health that you see, especially with cardiopulmonary diseases and cancers that are not being properly tracked by the Department of Public Health, can be attributed to toxic exposures and particle pollution, and the combination of particle pollution with toxic chemicals and organic materials and dust and allergens, it is deadly. And Tetra Tech has to be held accountable, and Tetra Tech and Gavin Newsom have to be acknowledged for making a political statement. Gavin Newsom awarded this contract as one of his first acts in office. He was making a statement. You know, he was slapping us in the face. We all know that Gavin Newsom paid $1 for the shipyard and facilitated its transfer. He authored the measure before the Board of Supervisors. The acquisition chief for Lennar for the shipyard was his cousin, Lawrence Pelosi, and campaign manager. So he is entrenched in the shipyard's development in his contract, to Tetra Tech in the North Counties is in support of a pro-housing development agenda that he's clearly has adopted. So we see through it, and we're going to keep protecting the community. We're going to care for this community if no one else does, and we're going to step in, and we will become the leaders we need to be, the scientists we need to be, the doctors, the activists, the people that we need to be to protect this community.
My name is Mark Alexander, and as Attorney Bonner said, I grew up in Bayview Hunters Point. And so I have a personal vested interest in this struggle. I too am a cancer survivor, and I have seen too many of the friends that I grew up with in my community who've died from cancer or other diseases prematurely. We will be working with medical experts to develop the diagnostic protocols to test the residents of Bayview Hunters Point, and we're going to be developing appropriate methodologies for doing research that will support our lawsuit. In addition to that, we're going to develop an education campaign that will inform the residents that they have a chance to lead long and successful lives if we could detect potential cancers early enough and other diseases. That's going to be our mission, and we're going to ask the Bay Area to support this initiative. This community needs lots of support, and this is one of the wealthiest communities in the world, and there's no excuse for people to die prematurely like this.
Yes,
that's right.
Can I ask you a question real quick? From resident to resident, like if you were to speak to people who live up in Butte County, what would you want to say to them as they face this company coming up there possibly?
I would tell them that they should be mindful and that they should join our protest in having that contract with Tetra Tech rescinded.
Right.
Hi, my name is Catherine Mohammed, and I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer last year. Thyroid cancer is, you get it from exposure to radiation. And so, and I used to bring my children here years ago at the City Hall when the mayor was still here. And we would inform him of what's going on, but he turned a blind eye.
That's right.
And to this day, he's turning a blind eye.
So he knows about what's going on?
Absolutely. For years. Mr. Christopher's warned him for many years at City Hall.
Yes.
And I would bring my children to attend those meetings, but he stays silent. But I want the mayor to know that those days are over.
Right.
He's going to notice us today.
You've been a
The
teacher in
suffering,
Hunters
all of our
Point for
suffering
how
is bringing us together.
Yes.
And we're going to take this fight right to his door.
I'll ask you the same question.
and
What
now
would you like to
here's-
say to people
come down.
from Butte
Come
County
down.
that
To join our fight. If you got a company that's lying, that's already proven that they've lied to us, who's to say they're going to tell the truth in Butte County?
Yeah. The reality is,
MUHAMMAD.
and here's another person whose family's been afflicted with cancer in Hunters Point.
Give us your
Tell
name.
your name.
My name is Adela Andrea, and we have been in this fight for 15 years with Brother Minister Christopher and other people that have died already, like Mother Espinola Jackson, and more people. There are too many to mention, but they have passed away fighting the fight. We don't want that for our family. And my mother is a cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor, the worst malignant cancer that the doctors couldn't diagnose. They don't know at this point what to call it. But we need people to understand that this is a very aggressive type of cancer that we are enduring. My community is suffering. We need help. And we need the people that are up above, the governor. I don't know who else can we talk to, because they're not listening to us.
The people in Butte County need to know that Tetra Tech defrauded Hunters Point.
Right.
They've defrauded other communities, and they will definitely defraud the people in Butte County. There are toxics up there from this fire. They make money by taking the money and not doing the cleanup job. Now we'd like to bring up Mr. Christopher to give you sort of a background history as to why we're insisting that this contract be canceled, immediately be withdrawn, be rescinded, so that the people here can feel that justice at least is on its way to being served.
Christopher Muhammad. Well, the history of this fight has been going on for over 70 years. The poor people of Bayview Hunters Point have suffered the indignity of being experimented on by the Navy, radiological testing without the people's knowledge, bombs being dropped. In fact, Hiroshima, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was assembled at the Bayview Hunters Point shipyard. It was testing where they bombed ships and radiated ships and then told poor black workers, go and clean these ships, not telling them it was filled with radiation. And many of the cancers we're talking about are generational. So the Tetra Tech conspiracy is the last in the long chain of abuse to this community. And quite frankly, Gavin Newsom was a conspirator. He knew the truth. I know he knows the truth because we told him the truth. His health department covered it up, the EPA covered it up, and other prominent people in this city covered it up. That's a known fact. Now you're governor. You have an opportunity to do the right thing, to make an atonement to this community by correcting the wrong that you're very clear took place by Lennar and its development. So we're calling on this governor, use the weight of your office. We'll take this as a mistake because we can't believe that you made an error purposely knowing the effect of this contract and the contract's impact on this community. We know that if you really understood that, you wouldn't have done it. If we are taking you at your word as the new governor with this hope for a new California, this is your chance. Yes. And we know each other, we understand each other, and it would behoove you to quickly rescind this contract. Otherwise, you force this poor community to mobilize with other poor communities to then demand by going to Sacramento and showing you our anger. That's our statement.
Now we have questions. Any questions?
Yeah. Now this company, Tetra Tech, has been criminally
convicted
of illegal activity, fraud on the people of San Francisco, the community. Why, not only is the state giving them another contract, but the federal government is still awarding Tetra Tech contracts? And are you calling on Senator Feinstein, Senator Kamala Harris, and London Breed to demand that all contracts to this criminal convicted company be stopped? I mean,
you said it as well as we could have said it. Everyone that you named has a hand in this dirty pot. That's right. They know who they are. Some of them were on the redevelopment agencies when they gave this land that was not clean, even though the voters of San Francisco in Proposition P said that we don't want any part of the shipyard transferred to San Francisco until the whole shipyard was cleaned. But greed introduced itself through our political leaders, and they all facilitated this criminal act of poisoning this community. So now they must have a hand in correcting the wrong. Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, has already spoken out, but more than speaking out, you're the Speaker of the House. You're the second or third most powerful politician in the country. You can do more. Senator Harris can do more. Senator Feinstein can do more. And certainly our Mayor London Breed can do more because her nephew actually went to school in that community and got sick as a result of exposure. So there's enough to go around, but this is an opportunity to correct the wrong through atonement and make this wrong right by rescinding this contract.
Just real quick, I wanted to add that first of all, Tetra Tech EC is a wholly owned subsidiary of the larger Tetra Tech, so they are intertwined. There's another opportunity for Gavin Newsom to make good for all the bad he's done regarding the shipyard and the cover-up. Last summer, Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice filed a petition with the State Department of Public Health to revoke Tetra Tech's radiological license. That has been sitting there ignored. We also, a year and a half ago, filed a petition with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to revoke Tetra Tech's national radiological license. They pretty much had a hearing after a year and then have done nothing. So we need our government to represent the people and not these giant corporate greedy companies who belong, in our opinion, locked up rather than making hundreds of millions of dollars. So we need to see that happen right away. Newsom, deny their licenses, revoke these contracts.
The MMAD.
AD.
Now you're aware.
And what's your role?
Well, I represent the community of Bayview Hunters Point, and I also
Minister.
Minister Christopher Muhammad from the Nation of Islam.
I wasn't sure if you were part of the honors team.
No, the fear that the community is suffering now has been echoed and legitimized by the banks. Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America have all decided they are no longer going to make loans on these mortgages for this development. Why? Because their greed is now outweighed by their fear. They are afraid that they're going to lose their mortgage investment. So you know these people who are dying, who have cancers, who've got to worry about their unborn child, they got generational harm for the next 4 or 5 generations. They have legitimate fear. And that's what we will prove, and that's why this contract must be rescinded. Gavin Newsom must now resurrect himself from this abyss of disgrace.
That's right.
And show the people of Hunters Point that voted for him that he cares about them, that he loves them, and he is not going to reward a convicted criminal enterprise like Tetra Tech.
Amy Brownell is a health officer of the city and county of San Francisco. Apparently she's paid by Tetra Tech.
Yes, she's on the inside.
Why is she still working for the city and county of San
That's
Francisco?
a great question.
Maybe you can ask that.
Yes.
Well, I have a couple of ideas. I think that Amy is protected. I think that Amy Brownell, she is a environmental engineer with the Department of Public Health, and she is effectively the face of the Department of Public Health on decisions with regard to the shipyard. She has longevity that makes her valuable. She is a sacred cash cow for the Department of Public Health because of Article 31 that was implemented when Parcel A was transferred in 2004. And Article 31 says that the developer, Lennar in this case, pays the health department for activities related to earth moving activities at the shipyard. So effectively, the Department of Public Health derives a revenue stream that's probably significant from Lennar developers related to how much earth is moved at a federal Superfund site. So that's the situation with the Department
She's a
of
part
Public
of. She's a
Health.
part of.
And let me say this: there's an unholy alliance between the Department of Public Health, Lennar, and the Environmental Protection Agency. We have emails where they were talking among themselves and synchronizing their messaging so that they all would say the same thing the same way. This is the federal government, the city's health department, entrusted with ensuring the health and safety of its residents, along with a rogue corporation, literally talking to themselves on how they can synchronize against the messaging coming from the community. This is documented because it shows. And so Amy Brownell is a gatekeeper for these developments, giving a cover of health and well-being when in fact every scientific body of information we have shows the very opposite. And the question that the press should go and ask the mayor and the city is, why is Amy Brownell still there, even though this community has no confidence in her? An act of goodwill will be to remove somebody who's been an apologist for this kind of poisoning for years, remove her, and let's start fresh. Yes. Barbara Garcia was a voice of reason that the community worked with. She became the director. Apparently she wanted to do some good things, but she's gone now. This community, like the police department, when you have a chief that we got fired, Chief Greg Sir, you lost the confidence of our community, and because of the murder of Mario Woods, we got rid of you. Ed Lee, the mayor, or the late mayor, rightfully fired you. Same principle applies when this long train of abuses continues year after year, and the people you have representing this interest is no longer trusted by the community. You have a duty, for the sake of the community, to remove these people and replace them with someone that the community can feel confident in. Amy Brownell has no confidence, and I asked the press to go ask those same questions right across the street at City Hall.
All right. So this is in 2 messages to Gavin Newsom. 1, would rescind the contract immediately. 2, instruct the state attorney general to bring an action against Tetra Tech to help pay for the health effects that these communities are suffering. We will have a health van that will go around, led by Dr. Sumchai and Dr. Alexander, that's going to triage the health in the community. We have purchased a health van and because these people are sick and no one else cares about
And
their
the health
care.
department didn't do it.
And the health department didn't do it. So we have to do it ourselves, and we will do it. Whatever self-reliant effort needs to be made, we will make it to make sure our people are healthy. Okay?
All
Thank
right.
you for coming.
Thank you.